Okay then, hello fellow zombies, and in this video I'm going to be having a debate with my lovely guest, Doughnuts. That's how you say your name, right?
Yes, it's 4 M's, not 3, not 5, 4 M's.
Okay, and the amount of M's, is that like essential to getting it correct?
Yes, it's not donuts or donuts, it's donuts.
But then the second sounded like a longer than the third
Exactly, it's not the 5, it's the shorter.
Ah, okay. Actually, I've got a question. I might keep this in the video, I don't know. I assume your name is taken from The Simpsons.
Exactly, yeah.
It is, yeah. I was just wondering that.
It was originally my gamer tag.
Why did you drop the Because you dropped the for a bit.
Yeah, exactly for that reason. It was 4 M's, and it's like, that's terrible YouTube branding of like, you got to get the exact number of M's, and usually it's 3, but it was 4, so it was all weird. And, you know, I call myself Doughnuts. People on Xbox Live call me Doughnuts, so just stuck.
What about if I just call you
It'd be a very different video we're recording right now.
Oh, that was funny. Okay, so in this video, we are going to be talking about survival maps because you see, Doughnuts doesn't think that survival maps are a good idea. And instead of sending out a paid assassin to end his life, I decided to talk about it like the mature adults I like to think we are. So Doughnuts is against survival maps. I am for survival maps, and we're going to pretend this is debate club. Okay? Why don't you present your argument first, Doughnuts?
All right, forget what he said. I am totally passive aggressive. In fact, this whole thing started because I wrote a passive aggressive comment on his video. So, but I was thinking about this quite a bit over the past couple of days about survival maps, and I love talking about zombies. So what I want to do here in this video is I want to actually find the answer together. I want to kind of find common ground and see if we can't discover the answer together. But I do agree with my original statement saying that survival maps in the classic way that we think about them, the town, farm, bus depot, like those survival maps, I don't think that would be the healthiest or the most successful thing for the zombies community. So the first thing I want to ask you, and legitimately is I want to define our terms here, is what is a survival map? Like, what qualifies as a survival map? What are the specifics? What are the qualifications? What map can we point to and go, yep, that is a survival map?
To me, the main survival map, the main thing I come to think of when I think of survival map is Town from Black Ops 2
right.
Zombies.
What makes that a survival map specifically? What
makes a survival map to me is that it is essentially a section off portion of a larger map, which Treyarch have deemed would be an enjoyable standalone experience if you separate away from the larger whole. And they have implemented fun gameplay mechanics in that small contained area to make it feel more like the classic zombies experience that we saw in World at War, like Nectar and Totem, Varrock, Shinonuma, Kino, that kind of experience there.
Bare bones, classic, to the point, you know.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Usually have all the perks or like a Wonder Fizz or something, mystery box, pack a punch, and no boss zombies, right? Or boss zombies or something, you know, just very laid back, easy to jump in, right?
Unless it's World War II zombie survival maps, and they did have some of them.
Yeah, the Tortured Path, whatever, and Grossed in House, whatever. Okay, cool. So I think that's a very fair definition. I just want to make sure that's what we're talking about here. The second thing is, what is the purpose of a survival map? This is something I think you can speak on a little bit more. What's the reason for having a survival map? Why was it created? Why would the developers develop it? And what role does it have in the zombie game mode? Why do players want to play survival maps?
For me, the main reason is because as zombies maps have gotten more and more sophisticated and they've become, there's been a larger emphasis on the Easter eggs placed on the more, you know, the later experiences. I feel like remembering where zombies started with those really replayable, fun survival maps, I think is a good way to sort of, in a way, sort of have the best of both worlds. So you've still got a larger experience for those people who like Easter eggs. And then you've still got those more fun, simple, bare bones experiences where you can grind out higher rounds and try and get high places on leaderboards. I know leaderboards aren't really a thing nowadays, but that was something that I really enjoyed back in the day, was especially with Black Ops 2 is the example where town, farm, bus depot, for me back in the day, I would hop on those survival maps more than I'd play Transit or even Die Rise, Mob of the Dead. I played those more because I enjoyed going for high spots on the leaderboards, competing with my friends, and in my opinion, separating one larger experience into several smaller experiences is a great way of furthering the replayability with the least developmental effort really from Treyarch.
I would also agree with that. Survival maps are basically the core essence of the gameplay formula in zombies condensed into like a very potent, easy to jump into experience. You know, people don't want to jump through those tedious and annoying hoops that sometimes those, like you said, more nuanced and complicated zombie maps contain, right?
Yeah.
Same foot there. So now I'm gonna kind of ask you here a little bit of why I think survival maps, I think the community wants survival maps, but I don't think they'd be as successful. So I'm gonna hop on, you know, my favorite zombies game, Black Ops 4 here, and I'm gonna ask you. You were playing Alpha Omega in that video on that survival map, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Would you consider Alpha Omega, right? Let's pretend you had the power turned on, Pack-a-Punch turned on, all the doors were open, the special enemies were turned off. Would you consider that a survival map?
Alpha Omega in its core form.
Yes.
The base Alpha Omega map. No, that is more like just the larger experience. Obviously, it still has the survival element to it. But in a map like that, a larger emphasis is placed on completing some side quests, like, you know, to upgrade the wonder weapons, and then to complete the main Easter egg quests, things like that, which sort of, and also even things like the lockdown to turn on the Pack-a-Punch machine is more steps than you would normally do in a classic experience, like, you know, Doris and King of Toten, for example. So, well, to answer your main question, no, I wouldn't consider that to be a survival map. Yeah, really. Would
you consider Nuketown a survival map?
Do you mean the Black Ops 2 Nuketown Zombies?
OG Black Ops 2 Nuketown.
What, the multiplayer map?
No. the Nuketown Zombies.
Nuketown Zombies. That is, yeah, I could set that to be a survival map, because that is very much, when you're playing that map, it very much feels like, okay, this is a area, just a small little area, and Treyarch have just set in some fun rules, and your goal is just to get to as high a round as possible. And that's basically it. That's the core experience. Okay,
with that, would you consider, you mentioned Doris, would you mention that a survival map?
You see, that is where it does begin to get more complicated, because zombies evolved. In essence, those old maps are survival maps, because that is the main gameplay purpose there, is to survive.
It is the basic formula,
Yeah. And obviously, for me personally, I feel like, for me anyway, all the Zelensky maps, for me, I've always felt like survival maps, where the main goal is to survive. Even on a map like Buried, where there is an Easter egg, and it is a substantial Easter egg. To me, at its core essence, it always still felt more survival in essence. And then Blundel's formula, where he had a higher emphasis on the story, to me it felt very different on a fundamental level.
Gotcha. So it was more of a mechanical focus. You know, Zelensky focused more mechanically on surviving, whereas Blundell focused more on the story or the side Easter eggs and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Now we're going to go into fantasy land here. We're going to go into make-believe land here. Let's pretend on Alpha Omega, let's pretend that by default, brand new map, by default, the power was turned on, so you didn't need to turn on the power switch. You didn't have to do the lockdown mode. You didn't have to change all the valves and deal with all those very annoying Nova crawlers or Nova zombies, whatever. The Pack-a-Punch just was on all the time. The power was on all the time. The wonder weapon was in the mystery box, and the mystery box never moved. What else? All the doors would open if that's your thing. Would you consider that a survival map?
Well, in this fantasy land, is the Easter egg and the side quest with the wonder weapons, you still have to do that?
No.
So the Reagans will be like upgraded in the box.
Yep.
And there's no Easter egg.
Yeah.
In that case, I'd say it is more like a survival map. Because in that case, obviously, you've just got the Pack-a-Punch, you got the perks, and you've got the wonder weapons in the box, and the core gameplay emphasis is on surviving. So yeah, that would be more like a survival map.
All right, cool. To some extent, we have always then had survival maps in Black Ops 4 because we have the ability of custom mutations. Now, I know there's a whole different thing with custom mutations about not getting XP or ranking up weapons, whatnot, but I think one of the most hidden gems of Black Ops 4 is custom mutations, because if you take a map like Alpha Omega or, you know, even Ancient Evil, which I know you're the biggest fan of, and you go in there and you turn on everything. I did this actually after thinking about this. I went into Ancient Evil, I went into Classified, and whichever one I did else, 9, and I turned the power on, I turned the Pack-a-Punch on, and all you need to do is just walk around, and it does play very much like a classic. You can even change the enemy health so you don't get super sprinters, or so that they're not as strong, so you can keep, you know, going into those high rounds, whatever. So I think those custom mutations in Black Ops 4 serve the purpose of what survival maps would do. So I think developers implementing survival maps similar to the way that, you know, you're going through in your videos in those little areas, I think that would be almost a waste of development time, because that experience is already in the game for players to experience if they really want to.
I would then counter-argument that by saying that, in my personal opinion, I feel like having several, for example, let's say we take Alpha Omega and we split it into 3. So we have the Nuketown side of the map. We have the side of the map where you start off and where what's his face is the AI guy and Alpha Omega. What's his name? Rushmore. Yeah, you have the side with him, Rushmore on, and then you have down below the underground area. You divide that into 3. And then you put the perk machines in each one of those sections and the pack-a-punch in each one of those sections. There you very much have, if you divide it into those 3 sections, you very much have 3 separate experiences that people can hop onto, and then they can enjoy and try and go for high rounds, try and compete with their friends to try and get to as high round as possible. Except in this case, because it's not in the custom mutation. Obviously, you don't have the option to move the perk machines in custom mutations.
Right.
Anyway.
We're living in fantasy land.
Exactly. But let's say that map was divided into 3 by track, and each area's got the perks, it's got pack-a-punch. And let's say there's an option on the menu, the survival option on the menu.
Right, yeah.
And then you can select the 3 different versions of Alpha Omega. You've got the Nuketown side of it, you've got, I don't know what you'd call the first area, and then you've got the underground bunker. There's 3 separate options on the menu. They each track their own high rounds. They each have their own leaderboards where you can compete with friends. That, in my personal opinion, would offer much more replayability. And again, it would be, in my personal opinion, this is something that should have been done instead of Rush, because the development time that went into Rush could have been put into this, and it probably might have even taken them less time to implement these mechanics, in my opinion, and it would have got more replayability, in my personal opinion anyway, because that kind of competitive with your friends, going for higher rounds and all that, that's what I enjoy the most in zombies personally.
Right. So yeah. We'll get into your Rush hate blasphemy later, because that was the next note I had. But so I think the difference between the Fantasyland that the custom mutations option that I presented and the splitting up into different sections that you just suggested raises the question of what makes those smaller sections more replayable than the entire map. And that's a genuine question. I have no, like, there's no trap or anything. I just want to know, like, what makes those smaller sections more enticing to you?
I wouldn't say that they're more enticing. For me, it's more a matter of the, as I mentioned before, obviously there is, in my opinion, there is something to be said for just, having a map where you can hop on it and just survive and kill zombies. And I do think that is a fun experience in itself, which would appeal to casual gamers, which is something that I think zombies has lacked a lot recently, is that appeal for casual gamers who, originally started playing zombies, I mean, Black Ops 1 and then dropped off when Black Ops 3 came out, which there's a large amount of people who did that. In my personal opinion, I think that there is definitely something to be said for the smaller maps, and then encouraging that kind of playstyle for casual gamers who very much jumped off with after Black Ops 3 came out, and they mainly stuck around during the to Black Ops 1, Black Ops 2 era, when they had those more fun survival experiences for them to play. And I think whilst a big large map like Alpha Omega does have a lot of fun, and there's a lot of fun that can be had on it, sometimes just having a smaller experience to hop on and play is also good as well. Like me personally, I do still enjoy your bigger, larger maps that have more to do. But I still do think that having those smaller experiences as well as like a bonus additional thing that you can also experience as well if you want to, it just furthers replayability. It's not necessarily saying they have more replayability, but it means that what would normally be just one map, one experience for you to grind, go for high rounds and get camos, whatever you want, now suddenly turns into 4, because you've got the core map and then you've got the 3 survival maps as well.
Okay. So that might be the answer to my question, is not necessarily the size that makes it more enticing, but the fact that it could be different experiences, like broken up into different experiences, because each section of the map would then play differently in theory, right? Is that kind of what you're saying? Yeah,
exactly. That's why obviously playing Town is a very different experience to playing Transit, and playing Farm is a different experience to playing Transit and Bus Depot. Gotcha. They each offer their own challenges, their own rules, which you need to try and abide by to get to as high a round as possible.
Okay, that's a fair point. I appreciate that. That's good insight I didn't think of before. But
there we go.
Now we need to address your Rush hate, because Rush is amazing, and it is. Yeah, I mean, it's way different than a survival map. I'll completely honest here. I just want to push Rush a little bit here because everything, Black Ops 4 is so underrated. I have to say something because when, Black Ops 4 was out and I did want that really fast, like just hop into a game of zombies and survive. I didn't feel like do an Alpha Mega or Ancient Evil or Dead of the Night. I would hop on Rush and just like, because the perks are free, the pack punch is free, the mystery box is free, there's no points, it's super fast paced, and you do survive in those really close quartered areas a lot. And I think that gameplay is just super fun and super underrated. And I don't know if it got the, I'm not going to throw numbers at you. I don't know how many percentage of zombie players played Rush, but I feel like it should have been a lot higher, but it wasn't. So
yeah, it's definitely never spoken out by people. I never hear people even mention Rush usually in conversation. I'd argue some people probably don't even know it exists.
Right, yeah. I think it suffered because it didn't get any updates. Like they put all the maps onto it, but day 2 or 3 of Black Ops 4 being out, they adjusted the health for all of the normal game modes. It was 150, and then they buffed it to 200. They didn't do that for Rush, so Rush was stuck on that 150 health, and it was just so difficult. So I don't know. I feel like
I think if it got a couple of tweaks during Black Ops 4's life cycle, similar to how Onslaught did for Cold War, I think if they tweaked it a bit, adjusted it to try and make it balanced a bit better, then I think maybe it could have had a bit more longevity. It's definitely fun to play occasionally. I'm not going to lie out. I played it a few times during Black Ops 4's life cycle. It's okay. I just don't think it has that, again, replayability. For me personally, I can't go back on there and grind just to try and get more points.
Right.
It's not something that appeals to me personally.
And so did you ever, and this is just weird, I mean, I didn't really do this ever in Black Ops 4 either because I liked the weapon XP and leveling up stuff, but did you ever play around with custom mutations in any way to kind of create your own experience?
I did actually, yeah. I used to, back in the day, I would tweak with the power doors, the ones that are turned on by power, and then the other doors, because you can open and close them individually. There's a different option for the power ones and the other ones. I spent a long time going through each of the different maps with different combinations of that to try and make a different survival-like experience that would be like a survival map. But I never managed to find anything interesting. There's a couple of ones that were okay, but never really much, really. Again,
custom mutations are one of those things I think people didn't put enough time into. And again, I
honestly think a large portion of that, in my opinion, is because the custom mutations in Black Ops 4 are custom mutations for Black Ops 4's specific gameplay systems.
That's a fair point.
And since people didn't like Black Ops 4's specific gameplay systems, they couldn't be bothered to really tweak them. If it was Black Ops 3 that had those custom mutations, I think they would be just infamous, and they probably would have increased the longevity of that game even more than it already is.
Yeah, that's a good point for sure. I just remember, I wouldn't want to touch custom mutations because I would want to rank up my guns, and if you go into custom mutations, you turn off bosses. You don't get anything, any XP, any whatever, which I think was probably the biggest mistake they could have done, because I love, agree with that. Voyage of Despair. Okay, love is a strong word, but I don't mind Voyage of Despair. I think it's a good, solid map. But sometimes the Catalyst zombies are just too much, and same thing with Alpha or Ancient Evil, where it's like, this is a great map. Why are you putting these Catalyst zombies in here? Like, I get it, they're cool, they're entertaining, but like, I just want zombies. So I would love to just hop into game, change absolutely nothing else other than Catalyst zombies, and then play it normally. But if you do that, you don't get rewarded for it. That's my rant on Black Ops 4.
Stupid, yeah, because I honestly think the best way to play Black Ops 4 is just by tweaking it to your own preferences. So if you tweak a few options here and there, you can very much make Black Ops 4 much more catered to you personally. But especially during Black Ops 4's life cycle, you couldn't grind out your guns. You really, the XP you earned in levels was really reduced. You couldn't get the battle pass tier skips, I don't think.
No,
correct me on that if I'm wrong, but I don't think you could get the tier skips now.
No.
And it just... So why would you play that?
Such a wasted opportunity too. I think JC Backfire had that idea of like they should incorporate the daily challenges into custom mutations. Like they have a challenge that you need to apply a custom mutations like set to. So you go in and it's like Blight Fathers only, and you have to survive like 5 rounds or something like that.
That was going to be done. Treyarch had that idea already. They were going to do that. It was going to be, if I'm right, it was like a weekly Treyarch mutation, where it was going to be like every week there'd be a different Treyarch customized mutation, because I know that it was found in the game files, there's a little picture for it. When you load into a game, there was a little picture graphic in the game files, but never got added. Like, what's that one?
Factions.
Factions. Never got added as well. It's legendary.
It's like a curse word in the Black Ops 4 community. Back onto survival maps. Okay, Black Ops 4, in my opinion, had that at least somewhat survival aspect with Rush and custom mutations, whatever. But I can see your point about the being official and replayable and smaller and whatever. But Cold War, and you know exactly where I'm going with this, I recently just opened my eyes to the beauty of Onslaught and Onslaught containment. Like, this thing just changed everything about Cold War for me. Like, it has all the perks, pack-a-punch armor, ammo mods, kill streaks, everything in Cold War, all those mechanics is in Onslaught and in those maps, I guess you could say. And the thing I think I like about that is the fact that they're not on zombie maps. I like that they're on multiplayer maps because those are actually new experiences. The other reason I think survival maps necessarily won't work is because, I said this in the comment too, taking Cold War, if you have D Machine and everyone's like, we need knocked from D Machine as a survival map. If I played D Machine and then I got all my perks, got all Pack-a-Punch, and then I just trained in Nocturne Toten, it would be the same experience as that survival map. So as someone...
Except it's not. It's not.
It's knocked?
It's not. And the reason why is because setting up and getting your perks inside Nocturne Toten specifically, going through those early rounds in Nocturne Toten is a different experience fundamentally to going through the early rounds on D Machine, progressing through the
earlier
map,
parts,
turning on the power there.
And the end result, once you're all set up, then it's the same experience.
It could be, except again, we don't know how Trike would go about doing a Nocturne Toten survival map. Maybe they wouldn't have some perks on there. Maybe they'd have some perks disabled. The chances are they wouldn't because it's Cold War and every perk's on every map.
Yeah.
But what if they did do things differently? What if there was some things that weren't available? Because that's very much what a survival map is in essence to me, is that it's Treyarch setting the rules and then you have to try and survive under those restrictions. So if they did a Nocturne Toten, maybe it wouldn't have any perks at all to be like the traditional Nocturne Toten. It probably would be broken in Cold War systems.
Right, that would be.
Cold War's not balanced.
You made it to round 10. Woohoo!
But still, it still would be something different. And obviously, that's the key thing to me, which is obviously it's going on to a different topic, which we're not going to talk about today. But that is a problem that I have with them having all the same enemies on every map and all the same perks on every map, is that it sort of takes away some of that distinct individuality of some of the maps. But for me, survival maps as well, a key aspect of that is having different perks, different weapons on each map, but that's a separate thing.
Right. I kind of felt that way during Cold War too, but I'm a sucker for Cold War's mechanics that I don't care about it. Like, I was like, is this a problem? And I'm like, no, this is just really fun. I don't care. But anyway, kind of stepping back to what I was thinking about here. I understand like the end result may be kind of different, but if you're like, I'm someone who doesn't mind playing through D Machine to get set up. I'm someone who doesn't mind setting up on like Firebase C or Marauder Toten. So from the perspective of we want as many players to play these survival maps as possible, we want to make it as appealing as possible. Someone who's willing to get set up on D Machine or Firebase C, the end result after they get set up would look fairly similar as that survival map. I mean, kind of go back with me, you were playing that classified survival map in the Area 51, the what you call it?
Groom
Lake. Yeah.
Is it?
So that gameplay, you know, it's a survival map, but once you get all of your perks and everything set up, it doesn't look too different. The experience isn't too different than if you were to do it on the normal classified map. Instead of taking the, and this is my next argument, instead of taking the zombies maps and stripping away content, stripping away what makes them those maps, I really appreciate what Cold War did and said, we're going to bring you new content in the form of multiplayer maps, stuff that you haven't played on before, or campaign pieces, but they did it with multiplayer, you know, the gunfight maps for Onslaught Containment and the regular multiplayer maps for regular Onslaught. Playing zombies on those maps is a completely different experience for everybody, so you don't get the chance of having a similar experience at all, while you still preserve the survival essence of everything being on there, all the perks, Pack-a-Punch armor, and all that stuff. So I think
I do agree with that. I do agree that I think it would be good to have, that would be a good secondary option. Like it'd be something good for them to do in Vanguard, for example, if they said, okay, we're going to stick with this more roguelike experience with Darren Fung and Terra Maledicta, but we're going to give you a more traditional round-based experience by bringing Onslaught to Vanguard on the multiplayer maps. That would be good. But even there, I still think it would be better, in my opinion, because obviously Onslaught still does play quite differently because you get perks in different ways and the rounds are a little bit different.
Yeah.
I personally would prefer it if instead what they did was they took those multiplayer maps, added some debris in certain places to give it a bit of a different feel, so you had to sort of progress through the maps a little bit to get, you know, and that also it would help if the orb didn't keep moving around the maps as well, which kind of makes it a bit frustrating.
Regular Onslaught is a little bit weird with its pacing and its orb. I wish it was more like, I really like Onslaught Containment, where it's just the whole map. Like a multiplayer map isn't so big you need to be restrained to this little area for a survival map if we're talking anyway.
Exactly. But an example for me is Hijacked. I think Hijacked would make a great zombies map if they actually, maybe you started on one end of the ship and then you had like debris, you had to, you know, like regular zombies, you had to save at points to open the doors, and then on the other end of the map you got Pack-a-Punch, so you got to progress through the map, open up the doors to get to Pack-a-Punch, and yeah, you could play like a proper zombies map.
Almost like Nuketown zombies.
Exactly. I've been advocating for Hijacked zombies since Black Ops 2.
That's a good idea. I always
want them to do that. But,
yeah.
I'd love like a proper official. I know there is a custom map version of it.
Right.
But
there's a custom map for everything.
Great. You can't even play Hijacked in Onslaught, can you?
I don't think so. Well, wait, is Hijacked even on Cold War?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Oh, it is. I got my nuke on that map. No, I don't think it is on Onslaught.
No, I don't think it's on Onslaught, no, which is very gutting to me. Onslaught containment on Hijacked is what I'd love if they like that. They could do that in year 2 of Cold War.
Yeah,
they do anything for zombies in year 2.
Absolutely,
we can dream.
Yes, instead of year 2 of Cold War, just make a really good next game. That's what I'm at least hoping for. Like, take the really great mechanics of Cold War and then blend them with the theming and the art style of like Black Ops 4, Black Ops 3, and Black Ops 2, and like mush them together. Like, oh, that would be the best zombies experience. I still
hope Vanguard gets its redemption. I know we're going on a tangent now, but I do hope Vanguard gets some redemption in a way. They do something. Even if it's like at the end of its life cycle, they add in like Onslaught containment to all the multiplayer maps.
Yeah, or like even as simple as like a void objective on every single map would be fine. You throw in a Pack-a-Punch and the crafting table, whatever. Like, but
you see, even with me, it'd be good if they just had it on the menu. You start on Vanguard zombies and you can just play Void. And that's it. It's a separate leaderboard, separate high rounds you're going for on just Void. That'd be great.
Absolutely. One argument that I was going to say if you brought up like Transit or Vanguard was the fact that I believe survival maps got their hit. Like, they were so successful, at least in part. Obviously, they're good zombies experiences, and good zombies experiences are just great. But I think they were more successful in Black Ops 2 and World War II with the Tortured Path, because the alternative of the survival maps would be playing Transit or the Tortured Path, which probably not good options for the zombies community at the time. So I think that's why they would be popular. And I think I have no doubt if there's a survival map in Vanguard, the community would be all over it, because the alternative would be playing Vanguard zombies, which is not a good thing. So I think that has, in some way skewed the community's perceptive of survival maps and thinking that they might be a little bit more fun than they actually are. That was just a little side thing. I didn't know where to put that. Potentially.
I mean, I do think that partly, Transit was so bad, so everyone turned to Town as the main one. Like, but even then, you got to think throughout Black Ops 2's life cycle, we saw the release of Nuketown Zombies as its own separate release. I know it was with the season pass if you got it at launch, but it's still a separate release. We saw the release of Die Rise, Mob of the Dead, Buried, and Origins. But if you go to Black Ops 2 today, Town is still the #1 most played map at all times. It never drops to Origins, Taken Over, or anything like that. It's always Town as the #1. And I think anyway, I don't know this for certain, but I think for some people, when they went on to Black Ops 2, Town was almost like their keynote to tone, the map where they learn how to play zombies, and that was sort of like their first proper experience with it. And I very much believe that survival maps should be in all zombies iterations, because, again, even if not just for me, I know I love survival maps, but also for newcomers to zombies, it's a great place for them to start learning zombies as well. Instead of all this convoluted crap we get in some of the modern maps. Not that I'm saying it's actually bad. I like modern maps, but if you're a newcomer to zombies, it's really daunting playing a map like Shadows of Evil, for example, is your first map.
Right.
You're like, what? But if you have that kind of survival map, it's a good way to get good at zombies.
I think it's the reason a lot of people stayed with Black Ops 3, because they had the Giant to go to instead of Shadows of Evil.
Like, no, that is true. I was just using this example.
Exactly.
I mean, Black Ops 4 as well. Black Ops 4 is a good example as well, where you got Blood of the Dead, and then you got 9 as well. There's that other sort. It's more like a survival experience in a way.
Yeah, or Classified. Even like
that was a season pass map though.
That's
the
true.
Giant was also a season pass map actually, so it wasn't free.
I think the term survival map here, I think the way you're using it is probably different than a lot of other people might think. I don't know, that's just my hypothesis, because the fact that you said Nuketown is a survival map is really interesting, or, like Kino or Dries, because that, I think, shows that you're not saying, it has to be a part of this map. It has to be a part of this old map. It has to do this. Like, you're more interested on the focus of the map. You're more interested on the core gameplay. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. And the thing that I think is a little bit different is that I am kind of tired, especially after Black Ops 4, of the Alpha Megas, the Classified, Blood of the Dead, and Tagter Totens, of just reusing old zombie maps as new zombie content. I'm kind of done with that. I thought it was really cool in Revelations, and obviously Zombie Chronicles is its own thing, and that's kind of out of the conversation. But if we're asking for more zombie content, I would like them to really focus on Onslaught and the multiplayer maps, and sort of what we were getting at earlier in taking those multiplayer maps and zombifying them. You know, they've done that artistically a little bit in Vanguard Zombies, especially with Terra Maldicta. They took Oasis and zombified it a little bit. They took, you know, Hotel Royale, sort of made it a little bit, not really, but taking the multiplayer maps, adding debris, adding the pack-a-punch, adding all the perks on that, and making those smaller, new standalone-ish maps, but more focused on survival, where there's not a whole bunch of Easter eggs or side quests. I think that is the route that I would like to see them go, rather than take something like, I don't know why it's stuck in my head, but people are always like, take Firebase Z and just like the main area, either the spawn area or the helicopter pad, and just do that. But to me, I'm like, no, that's old content. Why don't use old content? Use something new, because, you know, I just played Onslaught last night and I was like, dang, like I want to play that again. But if I played the spawn area of Firebase C, I'm like, oh, I've played this a million times before, you know? So I think that's the core difference.
Yeah, but I think if you change the gameplay conditions that you are surviving in, it still presents a new challenge, even if it's an old environment. If you're under different restrictions, or if they do change the positions of some machines or some areas that you can't get to that you otherwise could get to, it still sort of changes the core experience of surviving in that area, in my opinion, anyway.
See, I feel like for you that's true, and I feel like, I mean, if it came out, I've said this before, if we get survival maps in any capacity, I'll play them and I'll enjoy them 100%, but I feel like I would be even more interested, and I feel like more people would be interested if it was a completely different environment altogether. So that's like my official statement.
Your official statement on the record.
On the record.
That's what you're saying.
Yes. Tell that to your hired assassin. And that's the end of my notes. That's all I got.
That's pretty much it. I mean, during, you know, as you went through your notes, you pretty much went through my notes. Everything that I got written here, we touched on. So,
great minds think alike.
Pretty much, that's pretty much it. I think that's pretty much everything. So, what is the conclusion that we have come to then in this video, Doughnuts?
I have absolutely no idea. Gameplay is key. I think that's the main thing.
Yes,
core gameplay
is key.
Yes, whatever version that looks like, if it's got good solid gameplay, that core zombies experience is what's important to us.
But the main thing I have taken away from this video is that we have spent nearly 40 minutes talking about something that will never happen.
Nope.
So what was the point in any of it?
We're just floating on a rock in space. Who cares what we do?
Exactly. We're just dreaming. I think that is pretty much the end of this video then. I don't need to do my outro. I've already got my outro pre-recorded. So. Do you want to do your outro? Or should we just do nothing, just babble on?
Nah, just cut to black.
Cut to black.